Hey everyone, Elvis X here from the Empire X Gaming community, welcoming you to my next review, a review for the video game BlazBlue Central Fiction, which has actually probably been the most controversial thing that I've reviewed on this channel. Mainly because of the whole, no dub thingy. But we'll get to that in due time. Firstly, I'm gonna, not leave you all in suspense and get it out of the way. I actually really do enjoy this game. The fighting aspect of it is really good. BlazBlue has never fought quite as well as it has here. That being said, let's get into the meat of it now. The story takes place immediately after the events of BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma, where the Imperator, the main antagonist of the franchise, has activated her final weapon, a black sphere known simply as the Embryo, and it is up to our heroes to finally stop her once and for all in this last battle. If I delve any deeper into that, then it's going to be heavy spoiler territory, so I'll leave that alone. But in short, I actually really did enjoy the story, and I can confidently say that BlazBlue did end on a high note. This story definitely concluded the series very nicely, and I really, really enjoyed it. In fact, the main story, mainly focuses on Ragna, Jin, Noelle, and Rachel. However, this is one thing I have to praise this story for above the other BlazBlue games, or at least Chrono Phantasma in my humble opinion. Every character actually does something important for the most part. From Ragna all the way down to even Tao Kaka and Bang Shishigami. Whoever your favorite is, they get their own time to shine in this story. You see, when you proceed in the main story, you unlock what is known as sub-stories, which are essentially you playing as other side characters and seeing what they're up to in the main scheme of things. These aren't mandatory to play, however, I think you should still play through them yourself, because it gives you more perspective on the story to be like, oh, that's how this happened at this point, because Tao did this, and Ragna was able to do this because of it. That sort of thing. That's just an example. I actually really like this idea because those of you who just care about seeing the main story and don't care about the other characters, so to speak, can just rush through straight to the end. While the other group that wants to see every last detail and know every last little nook and cranny about everything can go out of their way to play as all the characters and get all the sub-stories and everything. That being said, the story mode, roughly 100%ing, took me around 20 to 25 hours. So I can easily say that this BlazBlue game has an incredibly long story, as they're notorious for. That might put some people off, but personally, I really enjoy a fighting game with an in-depth, deep story. And I really think Street Fighter could benefit from that, as well as other fighting games. Now, aside from that, you also have what Arc System Works is notorious for. Their gag reel endings. If you're new to Arc System Works fighting games and don't know what that is, there essentially are comedic skits that exist outside of the main continuity that you unlock for proceeding through their respective stories. Most of these in this game are fucking hilarious and honestly are worth watching. So, needless to say, I really enjoyed the story. I don't know where they would go from here to continue it onward. They did say this would be the final BlazBlue game, and I can kind of see why, in terms of story at least. Now, onto the graphics. The graphics in this game, as you can clearly see here, are incredible. The sprites have never looked as good as they have here. The animations are really well done, and honestly, I don't know what it is about the aesthetic of 2D sprites. I really enjoy it. The backgrounds are all nice and colorful, and even in the story mode, while visual novel style, it still does look really good, and there are enough fully animated cutscenes thrown throughout it to actually spice things up. And again, all of them look really, really good. So, needless to say, graphics are really, really good in this game, as you can clearly see here. Now moving on to the sound. First, we have the music and sound effects. Sound effects are on point and really, really good. Not much else to really say about them. You know how BlazBlue's sound effects are if you've seen any vids on it. If not, then, yeah, you'll be impressed. The OST, as usual for an Arc System Works fighting game, is also on point and really, really badass. A symphonic metal track for your fight scenes and everything, that really enhances the experience. And honestly, BlazBlue to this day still has my favorite fighting game OST. Probably one of my favorite OSTs for games in history, honestly. So, the sound is really, really good. Now, onto the voices. The Japanese voices, this is the first time I myself have ever heard them. I don't mind them per se, however, I do prefer the dub overall. Not to say the Japanese voices are bad, but it is noticeable, in my opinion, that some do put in a lot more effort than others. I guess the same could be said for anything, really, but it would have been nice to have both options. And I'm not going to go any farther into this category because everyone already has seen my rants on them, I'm sure, if you followed this channel. Next, we have the gameplay. And oh boy, there's a lot of modes that you can play. You have everything from your in-depth tutorials to your combo challenges to the training mode. So therefore, newcomers to the franchise can get in, and the tutorial is really, really well thought out. It actually holds your hand in the beginning and shows you things like how to move, to even doing things such as fatal counters and astral finishes for some characters in their combo challenges. Then we have the arcade mode. I've actually, gotta be honest, I don't think I've seen an arcade mode like this in a fighting game. What I mean by that is, every character has 3 arcade routes that they do. The reason why for this is to give you a brief synopsis of what their story plot is. In short, if you don't feel like playing through 25 hours worth, you can just play through the 3 arcade ladders and get a rough draft of what their overall story arc is. It's not as detailed, but you know, it'll help. After that, we have Score Attack mode, which is self-explanatory. Fight through the ranks until you get a high score. Then there's Speed Star mode, which is essentially Time Attack mode. Compete for the best time. Then you have Abyss mode. This mode is honestly one of my favorites ever since they introduced it back in Shift Extend. It's essentially, think of it kind of like a JRPG in a sense. You proceed up floors of a labyrinth-like setting and compete in fights on each floor to earn XP to upgrade your character, and the fights get progressively harder. I actually really enjoyed this mode. On top of using your XP for power-ups, you can also use it for health and items and everything else, really. It's honestly a really fun mode. You all should check it out. That being said, there are some modes that were removed, and I was hoping they would have actually made a return, since this is supposed to be the definitive BlazBlue game. For example, Legion mode was only in BlazBlue Shift, and still has not returned, even though I personally enjoyed that mode. Also, Highlander Assault from Chrono Phantasma has not returned either. If you were a fan of that mode, it's gone here. So, a little disappointing, I guess, but that's neither here nor there. After that is the online. I can't speak much on this mode because I've barely played it. I fought maybe 3 or 4 matches, but the netcode seemed okay to me. I've honestly played worse. There's also this weird lobby thing where you can walk around with your chibi avatars that you have designed after characters in the game, which I think is kind of nice, but if you don't want to mess with it, you don't have to. And I like the idea, if you just want to jump straight into the fights, which typically, can't even talk, I actually like doing, then you can ignore it altogether. After that, you have your typical gallery and all that, and you have the item shop. Now, as you play the game, you might have guessed you get in-game currency. Again, my favorite thing about fighting games that do this, because it actually encourages you to play more to get more money so you can get more unlockables, such as concept art, or soundtracks from the original games in the series, so even if you don't like the new remixes or renditions of the songs from this game, you can use the older ones if you want, as well as alternate costumes, etc. I really like item shops and think more fighting games can benefit from that. That's why I'm really happy Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter adopted this as well. But those discussions for another time. So, now onto the gameplay itself. BlazBlue has a lot of mechanics here. It's on a 4-button layout with A, B, C, D, D being your drive system. You also have things such as fatal counters, cancels, distortion finishes, astral finishes, an overdrive gauge, and overdrive finish. It can be quite daunting at first. I can't really explain much more because I can't do it justice. All I can say is if you want to get this game, I highly recommend doing the tutorial. It will explain everything to you, and the mechanics may seem daunting at first, but when you get the hang of them, it feels really rewarding. That's one thing I love about this fighting game, is that it honestly feels like a joy to play, because whenever you pull off a difficult combo on someone online, or whenever you master a character, it really gives you that sense of, wow, I did it. Speaking of characters, there's over 35 of them here, including 2 DLC characters. Mai Natsume from Heart Remix Gaiden, that light novel, makes her debut appearance as a fighter here, as does X from the X-Blade visual novel games. Both of them are really fun to play as, and if you have the money to pick them up, I'd highly recommend it. Speaking of the roster itself, this is probably the most balanced BlazBlue game I've played. While some characters might have a slight advantage over others, as far as balancing goes, this is easily the most balanced BlazBlue out of all of them. Now, can I recommend this game? If you're a fighting game enthusiast, yes. However, at the same time, not having an English dub really does hinder this game for me, because I essentially had to relearn the characters from scratch and adjust myself to, okay, he's going to do this grunt here. I know I keep digging at that issue, but honestly, it really is nagging to me. There's still no word on if this game will ever have an English dub patched in, but if it does, yes, I would easily play through the story mode again in a heartbeat with it. The story mode is really good, but I found myself hard to get engaged into it because I'm so used to the English dub voices. If you're a fan of subs, that's fine. Personally, though, I do prefer the dub in this game. But enough ranting on that. I can't feel comfortable giving this game a rating on a score of 1 to 10 because I know my biasism about the English dub missing would really get in the way of that. So, I'm gonna forego the score on this one, guys. I hope you'll forgive me for that. But at the same time, this is one hell of a fighting game, and as far as the fighting engine goes, this is BlazBlue at its best. I don't know how they could improve on the fighting engine here. I'm sure there's ways, but overall, I really enjoyed this one. If you haven't gotten into BlazBlue yet, I guess you could start here. The story mode does include a decent recap, but yeah. However, if you're a fan of English dubs like I am, you might want to give this one a pass, at least for a little while, and wait to see if one gets patched in. Anyways, guys, that's it for now. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm Elvis X from the Parks Gaming community. This has been my review of BlazBlue Central Fiction. Please leave a comment below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my opinion, and if you're going to be picking this game up. Till next time, guys. See you later!